In 2024, Kazakhstan introduced the honorary title of Distinguished Doctor for the first time, underscoring the vital role of medicine in the country. Today, cutting-edge medical technologies are available right here at home in the hands of world-class Kazakhstani doctors. Many of them work at the National Scientific Medical Center, which has been led for over 25 years by renowned surgeon Abay Baigenzhin, the first in the country to receive this prestigious title. I am Uliana Ashimova, and this is The Profile, a project by Silkway TV. Here, we go beyond just asking questions and getting answers. We aim to understand the people whose choices and actions shape our lives. Coming up in today's program, what's perfectly normal for Japanese or Kazakhs might seem completely unacceptable to Europeans, and they start to operate. Our medical universities don't even have proper multi-specialty hospitals. Who's training the next generation of doctors in Kazakhstan? Let's say a straight A student, diploma in hand, walks into your medical center, ready to work. They have no real knowledge. They don't even know how to approach a patient properly. And what happens when it's not just one doctor making mistakes, but the entire healthcare system? Not a single general practitioner could treat children. Why are more and more parents refusing to vaccinate their kids? The moment Sputnik became available in Kazakhstan, I made sure my whole family got vaccinated. Even your children, every single one of them. And finally, the one thing you won't find in any medical protocol. It gives people hope. It lifts their spirits. Abai Baigenzhin, founder and head of the National Scientific Medical Center, honored worker of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Doctor of Medical Sciences. Hello, Abay Baigenzhin. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. Recently, there was news that the National Scientific Medical Center has once again confirmed its highest category status. We all know what it means when a doctor holds the highest category, but what does that mean for a medical institution? First of all, hello Uliana, it's always a pleasure to see you. Yes, this is actually the 5th time we've reaffirmed our highest category status. So what does that mean? Simply put, it reflects excellence across the board, from the quality of medical care to even the smallest details, like how well the laundry service runs or how organized our facilities are. But above all, what matters most to us is patient satisfaction. That's measured through various criteria. And once again, an independent national evaluation confirmed that we're meeting the highest standards. So we're very pleased. On top of that, we also hold European certification and have been recognized as the best enterprise in the EU 3 times. So we're no strangers to this. It's not our first time. I'd love to take a look inside and see how a top-tier clinic operates. Abay Baigenzhin, last time major construction project here was over 25 years ago, when you built the center itself. But as we were driving in, we noticed there's construction happening again. Is this your project too? Yes, and I take great pride in it. We're funding an expansion ourselves, adding over 200 beds to the clinic. It's an extension of the main building and it'll house 10 new departments, focusing on areas of medicine that haven't really been developed in Kazakhstan yet. Such as... We're talking about high-tech medicine. When I was in Japan, I decided to get my eyes checked because doctors here told me I had cataracts and needed surgery. But when I went to a professor there, he examined me and said, "Your eyes are perfectly fine. You don't need any surgery." I asked why, and he explained that in the Soviet Union, cataract surgery followed European standards because the majority of the population was European. But for us, Kazakhs, Japanese, we have different eye structures. Unlike Koreans or Chinese, our eye sockets are shallower. So what looks abnormal to a European-trained doctor is actually completely normal for us, and they rush to operate when it's not necessary. After that, I told them I wanted to create a department that specialized in this, and they immediately offered their support. That's how this project started. Another example is ENT care, ear, nose, and throat medicine. For some reason, it never advanced here the way it should have. We're still using outdated Soviet methods, cutting, drilling, doing things the old-fashioned way. So now, with the help of my colleagues from China, we're creating a modern ENT center right here. When you received your honorary doctorate, you said it was an award for 1,000 doctors. I imagine you meant that it was the first time such a prestigious honor presented by the president was given to medical professionals in our country. But looking at the healthcare industry as a whole, particularly staffing, is the shortage of doctors still a pressing issue, or is it starting to improve? If we look back 20, even 25 years, the situation has improved dramatically. Back then, when I was recruiting staff for our newly built national clinic, we were in a major crisis. There were hardly any doctors left. The most qualified ones had left the country, started private practices abroad, and moved away from public health care altogether. You mean they left the professions entirely? Many left the public sector, and assembling a strong team was incredibly difficult. I had to bring doctors back from Germany, Turkey, and Poland. Were they originally from Kazakhstan? Yes, they were our own doctors. How did you manage to bring them back? Some came back from Moscow, others from different countries. After that, we started actively recruiting top graduates, straight A students, because at the time, we had the ability to do so. We brought in a lot of young doctors and trained them ourselves. When you say top graduates, you mean the best students from medical universities at the time. Exactly. We focused on education. Of course, we didn't solve the shortage entirely, but we made significant progress. And even now, I never hesitate to invest in our doctors. Whenever we have the opportunity to send them abroad for further training, we do it. Just this fall, our National Quality Control Committee assessed medical education programs and found that research institutes in Astana are producing better doctors than Kazakhstan's medical universities. And that's not just an opinion, it's a well-established fact now. The reason is simple. Most universities don't have a strong clinical base. Even if they're connected to regional or city hospitals like those in Astana, the expertise of the teaching doctors isn't always high enough for them to pass on real knowledge to young specialists. Let's talk about medical education in Kazakhstan. It's gone through a lot of changes in recent years. We've introduced quite a few updates. In your opinion, what's been truly beneficial and what hasn't worked out as well? Well, despite being a unitary state, the curriculum across our 6 state medical universities has never been fully standardized at the time. In theory, there's a law and government regulations ensuring that every medical student in Kazakhstan receives the same education. But in practice, that's just not the case. On top of that, new medical faculties have been popping up with different approaches. For example, faculties were recently introduced in Kokshetau and Petropavl at universities that originally specialized in teacher training. They were later upgraded to full-fledged universities and a medical faculty was added. But the big question is, who's teaching there? Mostly local doctors from regional and city hospitals. And when we checked, we found that many of them had never even studied fundamental subjects like histology, which is an absolute cornerstone of medical education. Why do you think the curriculum is shifting in such an unstructured way? It all comes down to a lack of qualified faculty and weak professional standards. The truth is, a large portion of today's teaching staff simply don't meet the requirements. Right now, I heard the Coordinating Council for all medical associations in Kazakhstan, and we conduct independent evaluations of faculty members in both colleges and universities. Our assessments are based on real-world medical practice and internationally recognized protocols from the US and Europe. And unfortunately, the vast majority of faculty members just don't have the necessary expertise. For a while, Kazakhstan's medical schools stopped training pediatricians. What's your take on that? That was a decision made at the national level. I'm not sure exactly by whom. And we blindly copied the European system, but Europe has low birth rates between 1 and 1.7. Their population is actually shrinking. Meanwhile, we're in the middle of a baby boom, with 500,000 children born every year. How can you compare those two situations? And now, we don't have enough doctors who truly specialize in treating children. I, for example, am trained to treat adults, while my wife was a pediatric intensivist. She's retired now, but she was a real pediatrician. At that time, we were training general practitioners, but no general practitioner was properly trained to treat children. For some reason, people assumed kids are just miniature adults, but that's completely wrong. Has pediatric training been reinstated? Yes, they've brought it back. Listening to you, I can't help but think about the consequences of these decisions. We stopped training pediatricians, then eventually brought it back. But becoming a doctor takes at least 7 years, plus additional time to gain experience. So now there's a massive gap, and for years, there simply haven't been enough qualified pediatricians. That means thousands of children have been left without proper medical care during the most critical years of their lives. You're absolutely right. It almost seems like our medical universities are missing the kind of seasoned experts who can truly pass on their knowledge. The best doctors are needed in hospitals treating patients, so who's left to teach? How do we fix this? One of the biggest issues is that medical universities don't have well-equipped multi-specialty hospitals attached to them. Students need a proper clinical base where they can gain hands-on experience, learning everything from basic faculty medicine to hospital medicine while working directly with real patients. And what happens when a top graduate, a straight A student, comes to work at your clinic? They don't know a thing. They don't even know how to approach a patient properly. We've raised this issue time and time again. The problem is many professors have no real clinical experience themselves. They spend their time sitting in offices at the university, never actually seeing patients. Abay Baigenzhin, you've invited us to this surgery, such an important area of the hospital. Yes, this is our surgical unit. As we were discussing earlier, it's crucial for patients to feel comfortable. That's actually one of the reasons we passed the highest level of accreditation. It's about the environment, making sure the patients feel at ease. For example, we have private and semi-private rooms, and all of our beds are adjustable. They can be tilted or moved in different ways, so patients can find the most comfortable position. Different surgeries require different care, like lung surgery versus lower body surgery. Patients need to be able to rest in a way that suits their procedure. So, different patients need different types of beds. Exactly. In fact, we're one of the only clinics in the country that can perform 2 surgeries under one anesthesia. For instance, we might do both lung surgery and a gynecological or urological procedure at the same time. We don't need to anesthetize the patient twice. One team works at the head, another elsewhere. It's not uncommon for our patients to have more than one condition that needs surgery at the same time. So in the operating room, there are 2 teams working together at the same time. Yes, exactly. 2 teams are working side by side. How did they coordinate with each other? It's all very smooth because they're used to it. Everyone is well trained and familiar with the process. And it's not the surgeon who's in charge. It's actually the anesthesiologist. Oh, so he's in charge? Yes, he's the boss. You seem to place a lot of emphasis on patient comfort. Why is that so important to you? You know, when a patient finds out about their diagnosis, their whole mood shifts. Yeah. They don't know what's going to happen next. They might even be scared for their life. That emotional stress can be overwhelming. But when they come to our clinic and see good conditions, feel welcomed, it helps them let go of some of that fear. And then, when they see other patients recovering, people who've gone through the same thing, it lifts their spirits. It gives them hope. And once the doctor talks to them, explains the situation thoroughly, and reassures them, saying, "Don't worry, these patients went through the same kind of surgery," they begin to feel more confident about a positive outcome. Abay Baigenzhin, you mentioned something really insightful, the idea that a patient should be an ally of the doctor. But not long ago, during the COVID pandemic, we saw almost the opposite, especially at the point when people weren't yet patients. I'm talking about vaccinations. As someone who's an expert in respiratory diseases, even before COVID hit us as hard as it did, what do you think? Why were we so unprepared for such a large-scale vaccination effort? It wasn't just for COVID, there was also measles and all sorts of other things. Our hospitals also became a COVID treatment center, and to be honest, I had no idea how we would treat these patients. Around that same time, we found out that the Gamaleya Institute in Russia, led by its director, academician Alexander Leonidovich Ginsburg, had developed a vaccine based on an adenovirus platform. So, the Sputnik vaccine, right? Yes, I've known him well since Soviet times. We were both students of the same professor, though in different specialties. I called him up, and he was very responsive, answered right away. He said, "We're still in the experimental phase, but if you want, come over and I'll give you the vaccine." So I went with my deputy Bolat Gabasovich, and we both got vaccinated with the experimental Sputnik. You both took the vaccine yourself? Yes, we did. You really trusted him that much? Absolutely. As soon as Sputnik was available here in Kazakhstan, I vaccinated my entire family. Even your children. Yes, everyone. And I'm happy to say none of us got sick. Now we know how to handle COVID. We understand it. But let me tell you, when it comes to vaccines, the system we had back in the Soviet Union was an ideal way to keep everyone healthy. From children to my generation, and even my parents' generation, everyone was vaccinated. We were probably vaccinated too. Of course you were. You caught the tail end of the Soviet era, right? You must have. We had vaccines for everything: polio, smallpox, scarlet fever, and so many other diseases. And we don't see them anymore, do we? No, we don't. Exactly, they've been wiped out. But now, some of these diseases are starting to make a comeback, and it's because certain parents, let's put it this way, well-meaning parents, started refusing vaccinations for their kids. Those kids grew up, and now we have a second generation that has no experience with or understanding of vaccines. Why do you think people started rejecting vaccinations? It's simple. Ignorance. Pure and simple ignorance. And what about trust in doctors? Trust in doctors has definitely taken a hit, but it's not the doctor's fault. Not the doctor's fault. Of course, doctors need to be supported. They need to be paid well, treated properly. We don't make money from anything other than our salaries. If doctors were paid more, you'd see the results in their work. What makes Kazakhstan different? It's a huge country with vast territory, but the transportation logistics are a nightmare. It's only recently that people have started paying attention to the state of our roads. You see, in winter, transporting a patient to a regional hospital with limited medical services and poor roads, it's nearly impossible. That's why local hospitals have become a necessity. In the past, district hospitals were fully equipped. They had surgical units where they could perform operations. Things like ectopic pregnancies, appendectomies, and cholecystectomies. They even handled serious issues like stomach bleeding. But now the district hospitals are virtually empty. It's all being centralized in the regional centers. Is that the right move? Absolutely not. But thanks to the president, he's implemented a program to change things. A program for developing rural healthcare. Exactly. We're just starting to make progress, but you know what our clueless healthcare officials did? I won't say names, but they took the last nurses and paramedics out of small villages. Where did they send them? Well, they pretty much got rid of them. They said there was no funding, so they cut services. In some villages, the population is only 300 to 400 people, mostly elderly, with no access to medical help. So what are they supposed to do? They have no choice but to move to the district center just to see a doctor, just to visit the clinic. Exactly, that's the situation. Based on my data, 2,000 so-called non-promising villages have disappeared. Now there's just rubble left. I've been there myself. I was totally against this decision. I said it was a mistake. But thanks to Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, he's bringing things back now. Yes, he's reversing it, but to restore what was lost. As they say, it's easier to tear down than to build up. Exactly.
Абай Кабатаевич, ну вообще врач это же ведь не только знания академические, это же еще...
Abay Baigenzhin, being a doctor isn't just about academic knowledge. It also takes a certain set of personal qualities. Without those, even the best trained doctors wouldn't be effective. Do you help nurture these qualities in your doctors, or are they something you either have or you don't? Absolutely. Even here at the clinic, I found that some of our top specialists are great at what they do, but lack basic decency. Ego, pride, you name it. So how do you address this? Well, you can train others who might not be as experienced, but have a better attitude. I gradually moved those specialists into less prominent roles. For instance, instead of leading a department, I made them executive directors or something along those lines. But I brought in younger doctors who not only performed better surgeries, but were also well liked and got along with everyone. And they excelled. When you say getting along with everyone, do you mean with colleagues or patients?
Пациентам в первую очередь, потому что, вы понимаете, у нас беда.
Mainly with patients.
Они думают, что
The problem with many doctors is that they assume patients know as much as they do.
вот я сделаю вам такую операцию.
They don't explain things properly.
Эта операция у вас
They might say, I'm going to do this surgery and you'll experience this, this and this.
пациенту. Пациент, когда
But when you take the time to really explain things to a patient and they begin to trust you and understand the process, they become your ally.
со твоим союзником,
They're on your side, mentally and emotionally.
такое дело. Когда
Once you have that trust, you and the patient are working together to beat the illness.
побеждает эту болезнь.